Greetings, my dear friends. Welcome to Odin's Storytime. I am Odin, the Norse god of wisdom and adventure. Today, I will share with you a tale called Buri, the first god and ancestor of the Norse Pantheon, a story from the mighty Norse legends that teaches us courage and cleverness. Let's dive into the world of gods and heroes. Long before the sun and moon shone in the sky, before the forests grew and the seas roared, there was only the great void, called Ginnungagap. On one side of the void was Niflheim, a land of endless cold and swirling mists. On the other was Muspel, a realm of fire and blazing heat. Where the icy rivers of Niflheim met the fiery winds of Muspel, the world began to change. From the meeting of ice and fire, great clouds of steam rose, swirling and twisting in the silent darkness. The drops of melted ice gathered together, and from them, life began to stir. First came Ymir, the ancient giant, whose body was vast as a mountain. But Ymir was not alone for long. As the ice continued to melt, something wondrous happened. Deep within the thickest block of ice, a shape began to form. Slowly, patiently, the ice was licked away by a great cow named Audumla. She was gentle and strong, her tongue warm and steady. Day after day, she licked the salty ice, and as she did, a figure emerged, first hair, then a noble head, then strong shoulders and arms. At last, standing tall and proud, was Buri, the first god. His name means, producer, or father, for he was the ancestor of all the Aesir gods. Buri's eyes shone with wisdom, and his presence brought hope to the empty world. He was alone, but his spirit was unbroken, and he gazed out over the silent void, feeling the power of beginnings in his heart. Buri stood tall and strong, his breath misting in the cold air of the newly forming world. Though he had come forth from the ice, he was no creature of frost. His spirit burned with a quiet fire, a spark of life that would kindle the future of the gods. Around him, the great void of Ginnungagap still stretched wide and empty, but Buri's presence began to fill it with promise. Days passed, and Buri walked the land that was slowly taking shape beneath his feet. The ice cracked and melted, revealing stones and soil, rivers and hills. The air was filled with the soft whisper of creation. Buri's heart was heavy with the knowledge that he was the first, the beginning of a long line of gods who would shape the fate of the worlds. From Buri's union with the giantess Bestla, born of the mighty Jotunheim, came 3 sons. The eldest was Odin, whom you know well, the god of wisdom, war, and magic. Next came Vili, whose strength and will help shape the world. And last was Ve, whose sacred powers brought light and life to the lands. These sons would become the Aesir, the great family of gods who ruled over Asgard and watched over Midgard, the world of men. Though Buri himself did not walk among the gods for long, his legacy was eternal. He was the root of their power, the first spark in the dark. Without Buri, there would be no Odin, no Thor, no Freya or Loki. Buri's story reminds us of the importance of beginnings, how from silence and cold, life and light can emerge. The wind carried Buri's name across the growing world, whispered by the trees and sung by the rivers. The gods remembered him as the father of their line, the first breath of the divine. And so, from the ice and void, the story of the Norse gods began, with Buri, the first god. From the icy depths of Niflheim, where cold winds howled and frozen rivers lay still, Buri emerged, strong and radiant. The primeval cow Audumla freed him by licking the salty ice for 3 days. On the first day, strands of hair appeared, on the second, his noble head was revealed, and on the third, Buri stood tall and proud, the very first god to walk the world, shining with the promise of life and power. Though Buri was alone at first, he soon fathered a son named Bor. How Bor came to be is a mystery, for no wife is named. Some say it was by the magic of Aesir, the ancient sorcery of the gods, or by nature's will. Bor grew strong and wise, and married Bestla, a giantess born of the mighty Bolthorn. From their union came 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve, the first of the Aesir gods, destined to shape the fate of the worlds. Odin, the eldest, became the wisest and most powerful, ruling over Asgard and guiding the destiny of gods and men. Vili and Ve, his brothers, shared this great task, bringing strength, understanding, and sacred power. Together, they forged the lands, skies, and seas, and breathed life into the first humans, Ask and Embla. Buri's legacy was not just his bloodline, but the very beginning of the divine order. From the icy void, he brought forth life, and through his son and grandsons came the gods who would guard the realms and face Ragnarok. His story reminds us that even from the coldest silence, the warm light of creation can spring forth. Though Buri did not walk among the gods for long, his legacy shaped all that followed. From his line came the Aesir, gods who created the worlds and guided the fate of gods and men. His power was quiet but immense, the root from which the great tree of divine life grew, the first spark in the fire of creation. I hope you enjoyed this story about Buri, the first god and ancestor of the Norse Pantheon. The lesson we learn is that every beginning holds the power to create something wonderful. Remember to carry this wisdom with you, and be courageous and clever every day. Join me again soon for more tales from Norse legends. Till then, farewell, my dear friends.